Hi guys, welcome to another episode. In previous episode, we added players management to our game. In this episode, we are going to add games management. So let's get started. Before we jump into games management, there's one issue to fix. Here, as you can see, we load players. We load from file, and we load name, we load ID. But we forgot about private and public key. So after this import, this player will not be able to continue his games. So what we need to do is just to add those missing values to constructor, and that should be it. Similar to chess player, we need also a similar structure for a game. I already prepared this class, so that's how it looks like. You can see it also implements serialization, because as you already seen for players, we would like to export our game to the file to be able to exchange with other players. And in this class, we have a few fields. Every game requires 2 players, so that one is mandatory because someone has to create this game. The other player can be is optionally when we create a game, because it may join us later. Winner obviously is unknown when at the moment we create this object, and we also need an engine that will run our game. Every game has ID, and here we store history of moves. This structure you already seen in a player. So there is no name because games don't have names. We have just ID, so we can load game from the file. That's why we can provide this ID. In case this ID is empty, we generate this ID. Here we generate our new game. And there are a few getters and setters that we will take a look on a little bit later. So now we can go to our menu, and we need to add some information to our help message. So first of all, we need to think what kind of functions we would like to have regarding the games. For sure, we need to be able to create a game, then load such a game, export the game. So there are at least 3 options required, but we may have more than one game, so we also want to be able to list them, right? And those 4 functions should cover all our needs, at least for now. So let's add them to our help message, and that's how it looks like. So this is the alt option. Here we have a new option, so we can create a new game for, and as you can see, all other values are optional. So we can create a game for this player. If we don't know this one, we can omit this value, but we can also provide, so from very beginning those 2 players will be attached to this game. We can load a game by providing its ID. We can add a player to our game, because if we load a game but the game was created with 1 player only, then we need to add the missing player. Local players is alt option. Local games will be very similar to players, to list local players, but we list local games. So let's go through all these options step by step. We start from the new game case. So this is our case for a new game. Our local gives information about the current game, and this current game may have a winner. We already seen this a few seconds ago. So if there is no currently running game, or the currently running game has a winner, then we can create a new game. For this case, we explode, so we split our action by columns, and based on our message, this is new game. This is first player and the second player. So we may have three cases with no parameters. If there is no parameters, we take a player 1. So maybe there is some player already. If so, that we take its ID, and we would like to find this on our current list players, local players. If we can find it, then we set this player, we create a new game and set this player as a player number 1. If we cannot find this, we simply display information to end user that there is no default player for this local machine, so we cannot create a new game without any parameters. But if our command provides us a player ID, so we take this ID, we also try to find it, the same as here, and we follow the same steps, right? So we create a new game, set player, and the same commands. This can be optimized, but that's not a problem for now. And the last option, when we have IDs provided for both players, so we are trying to find them on a list of local players. If we can, then we create a game, we set player 1, set player 2, display message according to this. If not, we display as messages according to not found users. So as you may see, there are some missing methods. So let's add them to our local. So let's start from adding new method for current game. Yeah, we want to return current game. We also need to define this property for our class, the same as we did for a player. This is optional because it might not be available when we create a new game, a new instance of local. Go back here. Yeah, so this issue is solved. So now we need a new method to create a new game. So go back here, and there is our new method. It returns a chess game. Yeah, it just creates, adds to the list of the games. It sets this as a current game and returns. So the missing part is this property. It is a simple array. So now we have everything green in this region. Yep. So here we have our welcome page. Here is our new comment, new game. So let's see if that works. New game with no parameters. No default player not found. Okay, so what are players? Yeah, indeed, there is no players here. So let's create one. It's a new player. Okay, and here we have fatal error, exception. Yep, we need to import this encryption. As I mentioned previously, we don't have any auto loaders, so everything we have to load manually. Otherwise, our script don't know what to do with it, right? So we have imported engine. We will need also a game. It's a local, it's a move, player, encryption, and generators. Okay, so now it should be fine. No local players because we had fatal error. Player was created. Indeed. And new game was created for my user because my user plays. Because my player is a default one. Yeah, this message, this command does nothing. Let's see board. Yeah, board loaded our board, but now we need to implement other features from our menu. Okay, so we have created our game. So now we need something to verify it, right? So we have local games. We need to be able to list them. There's a missing method, list games. List of games will work the same way as a list of players, but we have something that can fill in this this array, so we can load players. We need something similar to load games, otherwise it always be empty. The first thing we need is to have some kind of file where we will store information about our games. Next, we need a function to load games from such file. Here we have our new method. It will return this object itself, so we can chain it. If file exists, the file that we just defined, load contents, is very similar to loading players. We create a game with ID from the file, and we also set some details that I will go back in a minute. And we add this to the list of available games. We need to go to the top of our file and call this function. Okay, so local players. Yeah, there is one. New game. Yes, that was created for me. And there is a one game. There's a one thing. If we exit our game and we run this again, there are no local games. Why? Because we never saved this to a file. Yeah, we can export game to file, but we never did it, and so far those games exist only as long as the application is running. So let's fix it. So this is our case to export games. We take a current game, which we know that might be empty, but might be null. So if there is no current game, we simply display this message. I mean, we prepare this message to be displayed, that there is no running game to export. If there is running game, we want to export this game, and we also want to export a list of our games. The thing is that we want to have multiple games, and every game can be with a different player. So we cannot bundle them together, otherwise we will not be able to exchange them with different players. So details about every game will be stored in one file, and then we will have let's say it's an index file that will keep information about all games we have currently running. So we need those two methods. And the save games is very simple. We take a file name that we had on the very top. Let's go back for a second. Yeah, we take this. So it's a games.json. We take an array of our games. It's like this one. And we know that in this array we store objects, game, chess game. But we also know that we implemented serialization for this game, and this serialization looks like this, right? Here we have JSON serialize that is required by the interface, and we call this data. So we have ID, we have player 2 if available, we have all the moves, we have all the definition about the cast links that were made, and we have also information about how the current board looks like. And we also set which player is the current one based on those details. So now we can go back to our local. Yeah, so this, even though it is a list of it is array of objects, every object will be converted to the array that I just showed you, and will be stored in this file. so we will have this information for further use. But there's a one more missing part, which is export the current game. The purpose of exporting game is to exchange this with the opponents. So we have to have very limited trust. Yeah, so we have game data. This is what I already showed you. It's this one. So this data we store as a game here for the export. We have also some private data, and for this private data we take some details about the board, about the current player, and so on, because we would like to have some kind of footprint. We would like to be able to validate that our last sent file wasn't modified by our opponent. Yes, so some data is public, but some data in such file is private, and only we will be able to verify it. We don't need information about the board itself. Yeah, we just need to serialize this as an array and calculate some hash. And we don't need information what was modified. We just have to be sure that nothing what shouldn't be wasn't. Yeah, so here we store current player, here we store our moves, and here we store castling. And here we prepare public export data, so all the information about the castling and the board with details, because the opponent has to be able to load this data and display in his own instance of the game. So we take a current player 1, player 2 if available. Yeah, player 1 always must exist. We take private data and we encrypt this with the public key, and we do the same for the player 2 if it's available here. And then we create a new file name based on this pattern to output our export data. We don't have this property defined yet, so let's add it. It will be something more or less like this. So it's a game underscore and there is a game ID.json.